Hi, I'm Frank.
And I'm Dan. We just wanted to talk to you really quickly about our new campaign on Joyride.
Yeah, we're we've been doing this show for about 3 years, just over 3 years now, and in that time we've built up quite the listenership, and we've been able to rely on the generous support of a number of you.
But a lot of our stuff's been self-funded as well. So what we'd like to do is really take a big leap forward with the show, and you can be a part of that. Just go to our webpage, which is thankgodimatheist.com, and you'll find a link to the Joyride to the
website
page.
to our campaign on Joyride.
That's right. Or you can go to getjoyride.com/atheist. And
if you just want to go directly.
There's a video there for you to enjoy, and you can you can choose to become a supporter, and we will really appreciate that.
And there you can support at any of the levels that we've sort of set up.
Yeah,
$3 a month, $5 a month, $10, $15, whatever it is that strikes your fancy. We have some rewards that are there.
It'll enable us to bring you better interviews, more
Absolutely.
interviews, more produced pieces,
Absolutely.
and just enhance our content. And we'd really appreciate your help.
And obviously, over the next few months, we're going to be trying to give you a little bit more of a sample of some of the stuff that we're thinking of bringing in, if we can just raise enough money on a regular basis to be able to pay for those things. So thank you in
for your
advance.
support. Yep. And here's the show.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, guys. Well, from Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank.
And I'm Dan.
And today we're bringing you a very special episode of
You
TGIA.
make it sound like it's a family. It's one of those
It's
moving
an after-school special.
That's right. It's the touching episode of Saved by the Bell or whatever.
Exactly. Well, I think that is what we're doing.
This
today.
is the one where we confront Frank about his drug abuse problem.
Oh, Dan.
We'll get to that later, Frank.
That's
Don't
a
worry.
sensitive topic.
Don't you worry about it. We'll get to it later.
No, in sort of in light of that absolutely horrible My Husband's Not Gay that was on TLC this weekend.
And when you say horrible, you're not talking about it like
I'm not making any moral or value judgment. It was horribly done.
It's just bad television.
It was bad TV.
Yeah.
So we interviewed a formerly married couple.
Indeed. One
is gay, one is straight.
Yeah. And they were married. And you and I have a bit of a connection to these two. Mostly me.
Keep that as a surprise.
It was my wife. Yeah. My wife used to be married to a gay guy.
Yeah.
When they were all Mormon-y and stuff. So
Yeah.
we're gonna hear their story, and it'll be way better than watching that god-awful TLC nonsense.
Yeah, indeed.
So, did you have any fun stories you wanted to tell us?
Ooh, well, yeah, I guess.
Okay.
They're fun. The first story that really struck my fancy this week is the story of some new standards that are being released, I guess you could say, by the Oxford University Press.
Oh?
They have issued guidelines to authors.
Oh, okay.
That the authors, in order to avoid offending Jews and Muslims,
Right.
they need to avoid using pork-related words.
Oh. See, now, you think you're going to go in the direction of, like, let's not do cartoons of Mohammed, or, let's,
Yeah,
you
right.
think you know where you're going to go, but,
No, sometimes you don't know where it's going to go.
Instead of using offensive language like bacon or ham, perhaps you could just say something a little more along the lines of,
Could it be a steak?
A meat-based delight.
Why is this family not eating steak for dinner?
Right, absolutely. Do they absolutely...
Do they object to chicken for some reason?
Is there some reason why you couldn't have, some nice ground beef for breakfast? I mean, these are things that are easy to fix,
Eggs and
honestly.
ground beef for breakfast.
That's right.
Yeah.
Eggs and ground beef.
Yeah. A little Salisbury steak
Yeah, you can
for
put
breakfast.
you can put
with
some
your,
seasonings in there. It'll be like sausage-ish.
Well, I mean, there are all sorts of,
There are beef sausages,
yeah,
sure.
Sure.
Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. So, clearly this is an important thing to do. Because you don't want to offend. I mean, because
no.
the mere reminding these people that pigs actually exist.
There's this existence of these
That's going to offend them.
dirty, dirty creatures.
Horrid creatures.
my
I don't
God.
I don't even want to hear about them.
I know.
Don't tell me.
Right?
Can that possibly be real? Are there people who are that offended by just the mention of pig?
I don't give a shit if there are people who are offended. I give a shit that Oxford's like, hey, you know what we shouldn't do is publish anything pig related.
Well, yeah, I agree with you.
That's what's insane to me.
But they're making a big assumption that
gotta be
they're
based on
trying not to
something.
offend people. Which,
Right.
whatever. Okay, whatever.
I
What
mean,
do you think of that?
They probably
But
publish. I don't know what
that-
Oxford publishes. It's probably mostly academic type stuff. But I don't know. That's crazy to me. That's just
Yeah.
crazy talk.
And according to Muslim Labour MP Khalid Mahmood, he says that's ludicrous. That's absolute utter nonsense. And when people go too far, that actually brings the whole discussion into disrepute.
It does do that.
Yeah.
He is right.
Yeah.
And when you said his name, I was thinking he was going to go the other way.
That's what's beautiful about this story.
Yeah.
It just keeps going the wrong direction.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, you and I were talking earlier, about the Charlie Hebdo thing and how our friend, what's his name? The comedian that we talked about before.
Dieudonné.
Yeah. The guy this is the guy that was already like
He's the show on and us guy. He's famous for his sort of Nazi-ish salute or something like that.
Yeah, totally hateful. I mean, it's hate speech. He's really into the whole hating on the Jews thing.
Right.
Probably none too fond of the Muslims. I don't know.
I thought he is Muslim.
Oh, that's right. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah, which makes it worse.
But apparently he was recently.
In some way,
apparently he was arrested for inciting hate speech or for participating in hate speech. or whatever.
He was arrested for hate speech.
Right.
On Facebook.
Right.
Specifically.
Which is so funny because, I mean, the whole idea behind what's happening in France right now is like, protect free speech, protect free speech.
Yeah.
Oh, not his free speech.
Not him.
Not mean, not unkind free speech.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
He's offending me.
Yeah, exactly.
But what isn't that the exact same charge that people made against Charlie Hebdo?
Right.
Was that they were offensive and
Right.
I don't know.
It's the same shit. Work your shit out, France and England
And just be consistent about it.
and Oxford.
Like if you're not going to allow it, don't allow it.
Right.
But you should allow it.
But exactly. Free speech is what you guys have been talking about nonstop for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So actually believe in what you believe in. Or don't.
Or that you say you believe in.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there's
Anyway.
been the response that has been filled with a certain level of hypocrisy.
Yes.
I mean, you have all the people from the political right in France who are coming forward saying "Je suis Charlie."
Right. Right.
And it's like, wait a second, but apparently, just days prior, you would have been, railing against them.
Right.
So
You are pas Charlie. I mean, not. I don't know. My French isn't great.
Je ne suis pas Charlie.
Charlie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got another, keeping on the Islamic theme.
Oh.
There has been a jihad issued in Saudi Arabia.
Oh no.
Well, I don't know that they worded it that way, but that's how I'm going to word it.
A full on.
It's a jihad
A struggle.
against Frosty,
Wait, who's Frosty?
the snowman.
Wait. Okay.
A prominent,
so
a Saudi Arabian
in.
cleric has decided. Apparently, there was snow in Saudi Arabia, in northern Saudi Arabia.
I wouldn't expect that.
No, you wouldn't. And suddenly, this created a huge controversy.
Oh, were they trying to make snowmen?
Are you allowed to? I don't know. So somebody apparently asked this cleric, "Is it okay to make a snowman?" And his response was decidedly not okay.
Because they believe that like representations like that are like bad, right?
You can't make a representation of a person,
Of a person, right?
of a human.
So they do no animated anything?
I guess not. I don't know. I mean, so his reply was, "It is not permitted to make a statue out of snow, even by way of play and fun."
Oh God,
He
Saudi
said-
Arabia must suck.
Right? Jesus
the one time it
Christ.
snows and you're not allowed to make
It's like,
snowmen.
yoo-hoo. He says, God has given people space to make whatever they want, which does not have a soul, including trees, ships, fruits, buildings, and so on.
Can you write in the snow with your own urine? Because I know that in lieu of like doing, pictorial representations of stuff, they have like really fancy calligraphy, right?
Yes,
And so
you
could
pee
you write
Quranic verses into the snowbank.
Right?
That's a great idea. I think you found it.
do they approve of that?
Well, I
Is
don't
that
know.
okay?
I know that. I mean, it's nice to know that you can make a snow fruit or a snow building. Doesn't that sound exciting?
A snow fruit.
It's a snow tree. I made a snow tree. Yay! Now life is fun.
That's just children must have horrid lives in Saudi Arabia.
It just every time I read something new about that country, it makes me want to not go there some more. I want to continue not to go there.
You know what? The fact you don't let me in, I'm kind of okay with that.
I'm fine.
It's actually not that big of a deal.
Yeah, pretty glad not to go there.
It's horrible, not fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I could get in
won't go.
trouble
There's
for
no booze. There's
doing-
no booze, Dan.
Yeah, right?
Right there.
Boom.
Why would you go?
Yeah. Is there no booze?
There's no booze.
There's not even a place for foreigners to go and get their drink on?
I think not probably in Saudi Arabia.
Maybe not in Saudi.
I think like if you were to go like to one of the Emirates or something like
Right,
that, they
yeah.
make more sort of concessions like that. But
Yeah,
I don't think Saudi Arabia does.
Dubai would die if there wasn't booze for all of the
But officially,
foreign
there's no booze. I think
businessmen.
that's how it works, right?
Right.
Officially, it's not there.
Yeah.
But okay, it's there.
But yeah,
We'll
Officially-
we'll look the other way.
this is a restaurant, not the bar that we all go to.
Right, exactly. Okay, well, I have another story, Dan.
Good. You should.
Yeah. Okay. You want to hear it?
No. Yeah. What do you got?
This is the story of a neighborhood in Missouri. It's a small town. It's called Dittmer. It's about 40 miles southwest of St. Louis. And they, I guess a number of years ago, nobody really thought much about this Roman Catholic facility that was being built across the street from their homes. It's just a small complex of buildings called the Vianney Renewal Center. And they heard rumors that it was going to, help with, struggling priests, but nobody really thought too much about that. But apparently this is where pedophile priests get sent for help.
Oh, it's rehab.
It's pedophile rehab. In fact, a number of not necessarily this facility, but the order, the Catholic order called the Servants of Paraclete, who runs the facility. They started in New Mexico or something like that, and when they were in New Mexico, they were treating pedophilic priests, and then turning them out into local parishes after they were all fixed up and ready to go. Well, now in Missouri, they are, there are registered sex offenders living across the street, and they're registered. There are 5 of them that actually show up on the registry.
Okay.
And the neighbors are worried about their property values.
Well, yeah.
In fact, these homes are basically unsellable, except to the servants of Paraclete,
Right.
who have actually bought a couple of the homes in sort of these settlement deals
Yeah.
of like just shut up and walk away sort of deals.
Goodness. Well, I mean, if you don't have children, that might be a great place to get some really cheap property.
That's true, but this guy, his for sale sign says, "For sale, Catholics only."
Oh my God!
Why he can only sell to Catholics, I don't know.
Because he doesn't actually want to sell the thing. Apparently, blonde-haired.
My guess is
Catholics.
probably a pretty quiet neighborhood.
Yeah, one would hope.
Yeah,
Except the chanting
yeah,
or whatever you get with a bunch of pedophilic priests.
apparently, late night walks is what they enjoy.
Yeah,
Which is also not too alarming.
I don't know. It feels that there's a little creep factor to that. Like if there's a pedophile walking through the neighborhood
in some
in
sort
the
of
dark.
like monk's clothing,
Yeah, or in his all black
priestly robes,
priest outfit, so that he can hide in the shadows, looking in through your windows. That's who's doing it. That's what he's doing.
Voyeuristic priests. What's going on in that house?
Yeah,
Gross. So, anyways,
not good.
Anyway, I thought that was a fun story. Of, I mean, they have to put them somewhere, Dan. That's the thing. This is just another case of this NIMBY.
Jail doesn't count as a place to
not
put
in
them?
my backyard sort of mentality.
Well,
that just ruins neighborhoods and communities.
let's send them to Rome. Let's just
send them back to whence they came.
That's right. Send all of the Catholic garbage back to Rome. You guys deal with this. Except they'd protect them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Just put them in the Vatican City.
Yeah.
It's walled off. Put them back and they can tend to the gardens.
Yeah. Exactly. Tend to the gardens.
Yeah.
Catholics.
Tend to your own garden.
Tend to your garden.
Yeah.
Well, our last little story, and we're only doing 4 stories today because our last segment is actually so good that we're giving it extra space in the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about so this last story is about a Haredi newspaper, an ultra-orthodox newspaper.
Are they allowed to have newspapers?
Yeah, they just can't
read them.
Put them out on Sabbath, I guess. On Shabbat.
Okay.
Anyway, so this newspaper reprinted a photograph there was a march across Paris, as you know.
Yes.
Including over 40 world leaders expressing solidarity for France after the Charlie Hebdo thing.
Exactly.
So this Israeli newspaper decided to pick up this photo that of all of these world leaders sort of arm in arm prepping to walk to the thing. But there was a problem, so they fixed it. There were ladies among the world leaders, including German Chancellor Angela Merkel.
Wait a second.
And Federica Mogherini, who's the EU foreign policy chief.
So they're not allowed to show images of women?
I don't know if it's that they're not allowed to, or they don't want to acknowledge that there are women leaders in the world, or what.
What?
But they just photoshopped them out. They cropped the photo, so they got rid of one of them just by cropping.
Okay, yeah, smart.
And then they photoshopped Angela, and they did a piss poor job of it too. Like if you look at it closely at all, there's one place where there's a two-faced man because they just sort of jammed them together and stuff. It's not good photoshopping.
They cut her out. They didn't just put in a different leader.
No, they cut a couple of women just directly. They photoshopped them.
Just put somebody else's face on.
Yeah, but throw a couple rabbis in there.
Well, this is a problem for me. I have a problem with this.
You don't appreciate that?
I have a problem. Yeah.
It does feel a little like lying.
It's it's almost entirely like lying.
Yeah.
It's definitely misrepresentation of the news to be doctoring photos like that.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently ultra-Orthodox Jews have certain ethics and then lack certain other ethics. Like, they won't get on an airplane and sit next to women.
Well, what's the problem with a woman in the newspaper? I don't understand, especially one who is like a leader of a nation.
Nope, there are no leaders of nations that are female. Nope, it doesn't exist. La 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 la.
She's a fully clothed female leader of a nation.
She's very clothed, as a matter of fact. She's
Yeah.
wearing a full-length, like, black, heavy coat. And
Are the tips of her fingers interwoven?
actually,
that's kind of her thing.
She's
right?
kind of
She holds
almost doing. It looks like she's actually playing pull my finger with herself. Kind of looks like she's making herself fart right now.
Maybe that was the objection.
Maybe that was
that's offensive as well.
Yeah.
Why is she doing that?
I don't know.
She's farting in that photo.
Maybe that's I think that must be it. Of course, the other lady that they edited out isn't farting.
She didn't have any hand gesture thing.
No, she's actually linked arm in arm with a gentleman on either side.
Well,
so
that's offensive.
that is offensive.
That's really terrible.
How dare they?
Wow.
What's great is that what they've done to Photoshop her out is put those two guys together and made it look like they're linked arm in arm. Which is fine. Like, there are other guys in the actual photo who are linked sort of arm in arm. There's like a sort of, they're not all standing that way, but there are guys who are doing that. But it does look a little more intimate. Oh, and one of them apparently now, because they've done this Photoshop, he now looks like he's got a leather glove on one hand and the other hand is not gloved at all.
Oh.
So
cool. Okay, cool.
He's got a Michael Jackson route.
Yeah.
His gloved hand is quite dainty.
Is there a purse or something still left in the photo anywhere?
No, there's just
left with one of these guys.
There's just a couple of heads that look really weird in the crowd. They're not good photoshoppers. They're just
I think in that scenario you would just want to put in someone else. That's the best solution.
Yeah, I'm saying you put in like local rabbis that you like a lot.
Or
look who else was there.
Just do like my grandmother did with like people, personas non grata in the family. Just cut their face out of the family portrait.
Just cut it out. And leave a hole.
Just leave a hole. Yeah, I mean, this was the, she probably did that back in the 70s.
That's right.
And it just kept hanging in the hall.
As I recall, you photoshopped a family photo, didn't you?
I did. It was the same photo that I'm specifically thinking of that my grandmother took scissors to. And my dad also wanted this person not in the photo.
So you just...
The problem is, it was a perfect family photo, except for my aunt's boyfriend at the time. So he wasn't even a member of the family.
Right.
And he was nobody to anybody.
And they later broke up. And
yeah, and they weren't even together for very long. But it was at a family reunion, and it was my grandmother, my dad, and my aunt, who are, of course, siblings, and then their families.
Mm-hmm.
And it was awesome. I mean, it's the only picture like that exists of that group, of that whole bit of the family.
You are no better than these Israelis.
And so, except for the fact that I did a really good job.
Okay, well, that's true.
Like, you can't tell looking at my photoshopped picture.
You're more skilled.
Yeah.
That's true.
They should have hired me. I would have found a really good strategy for getting Angela Merkel out of there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Huh.
I would have cut them all out and then put them in front of a different background.
Yeah.
Because you can't see the Eiffel Tower in it or anything.
Smart.
I just, you want to know where it's at.
One that has the Eiffel Tower in the background.
Yeah, I'm saying you put them on, all of them on the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah. Then we know it's in Paris.
Right.
Because that's the only way you're going to know it's
How
really
else do
in
you
Paris.
know?
Yeah, that's true.
And then, like, some of them are hanging, like, clinging to the Arc de Triomphe.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have so much more fun with it than they did.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you have any questions or comments about any of all of this, you can, you know where to reach us. It's just, you email us at podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or you can call and leave us a voicemail at 424-666-8442.
Right. Go onto the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist, or go to the, get yourself into the very super secret closed group.
The TGIA Members Only Lounge.
That's the one.
Search for it. You'll find it.
And then
Request to enter.
I'll let you in. And,
Maybe.
And if by the way, if you request to enter, here's the thing that happens sometimes. Every now and then I do a lot of this on my phone, like accepting people in on my phone.
Oh yeah.
And it's small. And if I accidentally hit the wrong thing, then their request is just gone forever.
No.
So if you're a legitimate person who's requesting entry into the members only lounge and somehow you don't get it, request again.
Ah, yes.
Just I encourage you to do that.
Yeah.
And then
Smart,
hopefully I can
Dan.
let you in.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And of course, you can always visit our website, thankgodimatheist.com.
Yes, indeed.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. This is, of course, it's Pat Robertson.
Mm-hmm.
When we get the chance, we like to play him. And he has, he's got a real sense of like the fate of our nation. Well, maybe that's enough right there.
He's smart.
America started out like that. We honored the Bible. The Bible was the foundation of our law, the foundation of our civil society, and men and women gave assent to the Bible. Now, they didn't always follow what it said, but they agreed that was the standard. And therefore, this country was raised as honoring the Bible. How far have we come now, where we have allowed a few atheists to destroy the very foundations of our culture? And we're in danger of losing all of our freedom, because our freedom rests, ladies and gentlemen, rests on the Word of God. Make no mistake about it. If there is no God, then there is no justice, and there is no law, and there is no righteousness. God is the author of all that. And men will twist things for their own ends. You take away the Bible and you have the Nazis, and you have the communists, and you have the dictators, and you have evil rampant. America is still a Christian country, but it's far, far, far away from where it used to be.
It is far from where it used to be.
No,
You remember where it used to be back in the good old days of slavery and oppression?
When it was God-fearing.
Back when we were
And
God-fearing.
biblically based.
Who doesn't love a nice biblically based, God-fearing country
That has slaves.
that has slaves and women can't vote and stuff?
Yeah. It was a good country.
It was a
Dan.
great country back then.
And
Now we're on the road to desolation. We could be like Sweden. And then where would we be
yeah.
without our Christianity?
Horrible place.
Nobody's
It's a horrible place.
Nobody likes
You know,
it there.
I've
Nobody's
been,
happy
I've been
there.
to Europe a couple of times, and it's truly awful.
It's a nightmare.
They're just they and this is true. They're sort of living religion in mass numbers.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, the
And
churches.
they definitely do a lot better job with that whole sort of secular, society government-y thing. They got it, and it's just horrid.
It's sad. It's so sad. When I was in Sweden, actually, we drove past. We went to a church that had a very lovely cemetery, and it had just nice grounds and stuff. And you could tell that church was mostly just. It's there for sort of historical significance. It's not there for. I mean, this is just a country
Old churches are
They-
charming.
They also had like in downtown Stockholm. They had a big cathedral that I don't think has services in it at all anymore. It's just history.
Just for show.
No,
Just for show.
I could be wrong about
horrible,
that, but it didn't seem
horrible.
like. I don't even think there were pews.
I was reading just earlier about an old church. I believe it was in France somewhere. That's now a skate park. It's just horrible.
I kind of want to buy a church. I've always kind of wanted.
love to.
I've always kind of wanted to own a church.
I'd love to live in an old church.
Yeah,
It'd be great. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
it'd be great.
Big live in the sanctuary. Have that just be your
Yeah,
big living
why
room.
not? We've had communiques from
Have we now?
certain of our listeners.
Have we?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll
cool.
start. There was a lot of response to last week's discussion of Charlie Hebdo and of Islam in general,
Oh, okay.
as one might expect, because it's a controversial topic, and we took positions,
Yeah.
and anytime you take any position in a controversial topic, you're going to raise a bit of controversy.
Uh-oh.
Not necessarily a lot. We had a lot of people write in, so thanks all. We won't get to everybody. But a couple of interesting things. Stuart wrote in. He said, "Hi, Frank and Dan. Greetings from Australia. I've been listening to you for ages now. Love the show, but I've never written in. As most people write into podcasts to flatter or complain, and I don't see the point of either."
Uh-oh.
But he did want to write in about this. He said, "One of the nicest people I know and whom I see as a friend happens to be Muslim from a Pakistani family. She does not wear a veil, but she is proud of her faith, does not drink alcohol, dresses modestly, and of course no boys whatsoever. Last year, she was introduced to a nice young man through family and decided to get married. I was invited to the wedding. So me, an atheist and gay, was invited to my first Muslim wedding. I felt a little uneasy, but then felt guilty about that. This was nothing to the reaction of my boyfriend, who greeted the news with utter terror. The idea of going to a Muslim wedding as part of a gay couple seemed like suicide, and he refused to go.
Oh, no.
Eventually, he agreed that she was worth the effort, and we went.
Oh, okay.
Despite our greatest fears, we were not sacrificed as we arrived and served as the main course.
Oh, okay.
It was actually a very lovely evening, and as the only gays at the wedding, apart from a guy who was kidding himself, we were not pointed at or stoned. The bride's father came and sat with both of us for about 20 minutes for a chat as the evening moved on. Her mother was charming and promised to make us some more Indian sweets if we were good. The only awkward part of the evening was that the imam gave a blessing and talked at great length about the Sydney cafe siege and blessed the two victims. He said Australian Muslims must obey the law of the country they live in. It was a very vehement defense of the values of freedom and tolerance right in the middle of an ordinary wedding.
Yeah.
I was left thinking what a shame that the couple felt the need to have all this said at their special day. Anyway, I felt very guilty about my irrational fears. She and her family are lovely people who realize my lifestyle is none of their business and take me and my boyfriend as we are.
That's wonderful.
They chose to invite us to their family celebration, despite the fact that we'd both be imprisoned in their country of birth and executed in many other Muslim nations. Yeah. So I understand entirely what you two are talking about in your last episode. I just don't have the answers. And he says, keep on going, and nice things about the show.
Wonderful.
Thanks for writing in, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart. Yeah.
We don't have the answers either.
No.
We keep looking, but they don't seem to be easy.
I don't know. They're not easy.
So
that's
there you go.
Do
you want to play a voicemail?
Sure, I most definitely can. Well, Sparkle Darkle,
our favorite pony,
phoned us this week, and this is what he has brought to the show.
Okay,
for us this week.
Hey, Frank and Dan, Frank, it's your old buddy, Harker Balker Pony. Listen, you guys are talking about Ireland and the whole gay marriage thing, and I can't believe that you guys completely skipped over a completely obvious one. Yeah, okay, sure, the sounds of silence thing going on, but you completely missed over this one. And I will admit, I'm not exactly a singer, so... Oh, Frank and Dan, the sounds of sodomy. The deaf children cannot share the joy, the echoing gasps and words of carnal lust. We cannot give into gay demand. I know there's like a whole other verse or something in here, but that's the best I could do right now. Ciao. Have a great time. Enjoy the winter, because Buffalo's cold. Okay, bye.
Well, thanks for the serenade, Sprickle Sprackle. It's always lovely to get serenaded about sodomy.
Oh, it's such a beautiful topic
and a beautiful song
voice, and a beautiful singing voice, Sparkle.
Indeed. We're gonna move on. Jason wrote into us again about the Charlie Hebdo thing.
Okay.
He says, "Thanks so much for your discussion on Charlie Hebdo. It reminded me about what helps me put terrorism into perspective. When I heard about the Charlie Hebdo killings, my first reaction was exterminate, exterminate, exterminate. Raise every mosque, burn every madrasa, execute every jihadi on sight."
That was the first reaction?
Apparently.
Okay.
Islam must be destroyed. It's us or them. Then I talked myself down to merely destroying every Quran in existence.
Oh, okay.
That
All right.
Florida preacher, Terry Jones, didn't seem like such a kook after all. What brought me back to sanity was remembering that, sure, there's terrorism, but then there are real dangers. Dangers that kill by the millions, and yet we yawn about them if we bother to think about them at all. On 9/11/2001, about 3,000 people in the U.S. died from terror attacks. About 1,200 people also died from tobacco that day, according
1,200?
according to the CDC.
Wow. Okay.
The day after that, no one died in terror attacks, but another 1,200 died from tobacco, and the same goes for the day after that. If you look at the whole decade after 9/11, still only 3,000 died from terror attacks in the U.S., give or take, but 4.5 million died from tobacco. That's about 1,500 9/11s. Even bladder cancer killed 100,000 in that time. Bladder cancer. We had 30 9/11s of bladder cancer in that decade, and yet no one's agitating for a war on bladder cancer. Well, I suppose people are trying to cure cancer.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
But
is
maybe it's not funded in the way the war on terror is funded.
and it probably doesn't have a graphics package on the nightly news.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah, he says, it really makes me wonder if the CIA is torturing the right people. Just kidding. But seriously... What?
medical researchers who are you? No, never mind.
No, don't. I don't think that's what he's implying. Anyway, he says, why do we react so severely to a threat that is dwarfed by threats that are too remote to even think about? It's as if society is deathly allergic to terrorism. Any exposure, no matter how minute, turns into a crisis of existential proportions. I'm not saying that we should ignore terrorism altogether. It's one tactic in a larger Islamist movement that society must face.
Yeah.
I just think our attempts to combat Islamism are liable to backfire if we can't perceive the terrorism in its proper proportion to other ills.
Okay.
It's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
There are definitely things that are killing way more than Islamism. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. If we were to devote the amount of time and energy and money to those things that we devote to, firing weaponry at villages,
Yeah.
that'd be good.
That would be.
That would be a good thing.
That would be good.
We'd save more lives doing that.
Yeah. And maybe make ourselves less of a. I don't want to. It's always a dicey thing to say, but make ourselves less of a target.
Yeah.
For terrorism.
Yeah.
If
we're
we're do-gooders and we don't meddle in foreign affairs, less likely.
It does seem like
it seems less likely to me.
If a U.S.
I may be wrong.
If a U.S. incursion into your country means that suddenly nobody's dying of cancer anymore, I'm guessing they'd like that.
Well, yeah, because they're dying from bullets.
Right, exactly. So we stop them dying from bullets. Well, okay, we're curing cancer one bullet at a time. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Jesus. United States, curing disease one drone strike at a time.
Well, yeah, they're not dying from the disease anymore.
No, you can't deny that fewer and fewer Afghanis are dying from disease.
It's remarkable.
We're horrifying ourselves, folks. Don't worry about that. It does lead me, interestingly, into the next email. This one's it's quite long, and so I can't get to all of the points that Lynn wanted to make.
Okay.
But I wanted to point out a few things. Lynn is calling us out for. Lynn says, Dear Frank and Dan, thank God I'm Atheist is my favorite podcast, even if you do get Islam totally wrong.
What?
Here are my comments on your last podcast. And I think there are a few very valid points in this.
Okay.
She says, because we had talked about, about Islam's, about these killings just being sort of part of their religion. They're just following the rules.
Well,
if there's blasphemy or whatever.
Of the extreme
right.
definition or extreme interpretation of their religion. Yeah.
Right. So
And
she points
I wasn't saying the moderates have the same sense.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right, indeed. Lynn, I said she, but Lynn is a gender non-specific name, so I don't know.
Okay.
So Lynn points out that there is a scripture that says anyone who blasphemes the name of the Lord is to be put to death. The entire assembly must stone them whether foreigner or native born, when they blaspheme the name, they are to be put to death. But that's not in the Quran. That's in Leviticus. And Lynn. Gender.
Just go with she.
I'm just going with Lynn.
Okay, all right.
But Lynn points out that, and I can't verify this, but I can verify that if you search for blasphemy or blaspheme in the Quran, you won't actually find those words. She quotes Fareed Zechariah. Dang it, genders are tough. I'm trying to be very good about gender because I've got several trans friends, and they're very conscious of gender identifiers, and I'm trying to be good about it.
Well, we weren't given any indication,
Right?
And
I don't know.
I
It's Lynn spelled with an E. Anyway, I won't get too far into that. But,
okay, all right. Proceed.
So Lynn quotes Fareed Zechariah, who says, in fact, the Quran prescribes no punishment for blasphemy. Like so many of the most fanatical and violent aspects of Islamic terrorism today, the idea that Islam requires that insults to Muhammad be met with violence is a creation of politicians and clerics to serve a political agenda. But I say to you, Lynn, isn't that kind of the same thing? I mean, it's not like it's the same thing. I get that. But if the leaders of some of the sects of this religion are calling for it as though it's just part of the religion, if in effect, does it matter if it's actually in the Quran or not?
Okay, but Dan, I think the point would be the thing that all of these different sects and interpretations of Islam have in common is that they all read the Quran.
Sure.
They all have the Quran as their base.
Right.
If it's not in the Quran, then I agree with Lynn.
Well, I mean,
you know what I mean? But there are these, because it would be like, the Baptists having some crazy idea that has nothing to do with the Bible.
But the Quran is not the end of the religion, just as the Torah is not the end of Judaism. And so, there's nothing in the Torah
right,
about.
But if it's only certain sects that are coming to these conclusions, and there is legitimately nothing in the Quran,
sure,
which I'm curious about that. Did you look that up to confirm?
I tried to, but I mean, it's like,
yeah,
you can look up one word, but does that really give you a sense of whether or not
what the message is? Or
the message is in there? I'm not going to read the whole damn book.
No, I know. It just, it makes me now want to go and do a little research.
Yeah,
I wish I'd read that email prior to the show. But if what Lynn is saying is correct, then I agree with Lynn. Because if an individual, if that little group over there is teaching one thing, how could you possibly say that is the whole?
Indeed.
That they represent, that their interpretation is a blight on all of.
Indeed. And we couldn't lay, as we noted, you can't, just as you can't lay, the acts of the KKK on the entirety of Christianity.
Right.
You can't lay the acts of these Muslim extremists on the entirety of Islam.
Right.
However, our complaint was that one of the complaints that I think is valid is that the rest of Islam needs to marginalize these guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, actually, Lynn had something to say about that too. Lynn said, "You ask, why don't Muslims denounce these terror attacks? Unlike Catholicism or Mormonism, who have a pope or a prophet, there is no one leader of Islam.
Right.
There are a gazillion Islamic religious groups, but unlike Catholics, there's no one individual to speak for all 1.6 billion Muslims. And the media does not report on the Muslims who condemn terrorism." Which may be true, although, like I pointed out last week, there was, the entirety of one of the major things that you read on Huffington Post was just a list of tweets by Muslims condemning it. So I don't know that that's necessarily true, but a lot of the voices that you hear, matter of fact, I don't know that that's true. I see a lot of Muslims condemning the violence, but I mean, I guess it's just a matter of I think the Muslims need to tend to themselves and need to sort out, because what you see a lot of is moderate Muslims who are actually, when you read the polls, moderate Muslims in Muslim countries support a lot of these violent acts. They just do, even the moderate ones.
Yeah.
Even the ones who wouldn't ever go do it themselves.
Right.
They won't condemn it.
Yeah. I know.
So maybe some of the intelligentsia will condemn it, and but there's,
of course there'll be those that condemn it.
But when what
But
was it, 70 or something percent?
It has to be so uncomfortable for them. Like they you know what I mean? Like the vast middle, it should be the only thing we're hearing.
Right.
And it's not.
Right.
That's my problem. Is that they have to tend to this themselves. If it's coming from the outside, it'll never.
Right. And what needs to happen is that, like, within the Muslim community, within all of these Muslim countries,
right,
there needs to be a sense of, like, if someone says, I should, if someone even hints that they should go to commit some violent act in the name of Allah, everyone should come down on them like crazy.
Yeah. The video clip that we played the audio from of the cleric in Norway, right?
Yeah,
a number of weeks ago.
Yep.
That audience should have been outraged, and they weren't. They were just going along with him.
Right.
And
they were saying,
kind of smiling and laughing.
He was saying, raise your hand if you agree with X, raise your hand if you agree with Y, and they were all granting assent to this.
They were all there doing it. Yeah.
So it doesn't really, that doesn't.
And it's one video of one meeting, and who knows. But,
yeah. Anyway, it's a valid point. There is no centralized structure in Islam, and I get that. So it is
might
tricky.
Be one of the problems.
It might be. Absolutely. That seems problematic to me. Anyway, we got another voicemail, don't we?
Yes, we do. And this voicemail comes to us from a listener by the name of Eben, and she has sort of a pitch for all of us.
Yes.
Hey, Frank and Dan and Adam. Love the show. This is Evan Thomas from Southern Utah. I just was calling to let you and the listeners know that I am holding a book drive for a children's center in Limuru, Kenya. And I guess, a lot of atheists tend to be rather charitably minded, so I was hoping that maybe there'd be some interest in donating kids' books. To find out more and to find out how to donate and help the center in other ways, they can go to facebook.com/booksforbeatrice. It's the name of the project. And there they'll find information and an Imgur link to, like, a rather thorough explanation of the charity and everything it does. So anyway, thanks so much for doing the show, and I look forward to the next episode.
Well, thanks, Eben.
Yeah.
Eben has also posted this, I noticed, in the members-only lounge. So if you want to find it, you can also find Eben's post there and link to it from that. But that seems like a worthy thing.
Yeah, sure. Awesome. Great. Thanks, Evan. Well, that's it for voicemails.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. So I just want to thank some donors then. We had some lovely people donate to us. We finally figured out who were our Joyride donors were for the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Henry, Michael, and Chris, thank you all for donating through Joyride.
And they those were the ones that qualified for the what is it called? Because we have different reward levels.
Yes, that's right.
So it's for $5 or more a month. You get your name mentioned on the show.
You get immortality.
Immortality. That's what
we're giving you. We're making
everything
you
on the
immortal.
internet is forever.
It's forever. So you guys are now immortal. Well done. Also immortal, not on Joyride, was Robbie. So thank you very much. He's now a subscriber, a monthly subscriber on PayPal.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Robbie. All right, Dan.
Well, so my wife is a lovely person, and she used to be married to another lovely person named Shane. And we all got together and watched that god-awful show.
No, amazing.
That amazing show.
Amazing show.
Sorry, I thought it was god-awful for a second, and then you reminded me, and now I remember.
No, it was truly awful.
Totally amazing.
It was one of the worst hours of television that I've sat through.
Yeah.
Because, you know what? I wouldn't have sat through it if we hadn't said that we were going to watch it.
Right.
But what it ended up leading to was a very nice discussion with Andrea and Shane. But here's something that's interesting. Just before we get to that interview, I kind of want to set the stage a little bit. Peggy Fletcher Stack of the Salt Lake Tribune this week reported on some statistics about divorce rates, of how these marriages typically, of these sort of mixed orientation marriages, Mormon marriages, and how they fare, long term.
Sure.
And there was a study done recently.
Now, surely they do very well.
Oh, they do just like on the show.
Right.
They do very, very, very well. This is research done by John Dellin, who's a doctoral student at the Utah State University, and Bill Bradshaw, who is a retired professor from Brigham Young University. And they put this thing together. And what they found is that between 51% and 69% of mixed orientation Mormon marriages end in divorce.
What?
The average, let's see, it's roughly 25% of Mormon couples split. That's sort of your just
Mormons
number.
tend to stick together.
They do. They have a low divorce rate.
Divorce is infrequent with Mormons, but not if one of them's gay.
But 1 in 4 is still, anyway.
Yeah.
More than 70% of LGBT/same-sex attracted, that would be LGBT SSA Mormons, leave the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 80% of respondents reported undergoing efforts to change their sexual orientation, and 53% wound up rejecting their religious identity. And these are strange concepts, but there's numbers attached to them. 37% compartmentalized their sexual and religious identities, 6% rejected their LGBT identity, and 4% integrated the two.
Oh,
which is alarming all by itself.
4% isn't doing so great.
No,
But
no,
yeah, they make it work, I guess.
but whatever. And the study relied on participants from 48 states and 22 countries. 75% were male and 22% were female.
Of the gay ones? You mean
Of the people that they talked to in this study. So these were people who were at one point.
But I'm saying
married.
they're not talking to the
Gay.
to the straight part of the household. They're talking to the gay one.
I believe so.
Except unless they don't identify as gay. They're just SSA.
No,
Anyway.
LGBT SSA.
Right. Anyway, so that's that's the background that leads us into this. You get that out of your system? Okay.
You just sigh in the mic.
Okay. You ready?
Yes.
I'm going to start.
Okay.
So here we are at my house with my wife, Andrea. Say hi, Andrea.
Hi.
And her ex-husband, Shane. Hi, Shane.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good. So what we did, we just watched the SSA documentary, didn't we, Frank?
On TLC, yes. My husband's not gay.
My husband's very much gay.
Oh, these men are gay. There's no doubt that these men are very, very gay.
Well, and they don't actually deny it in the show. I mean, this is a show.
They deny being gay.
Well, that's true. There's a nomenclature issue, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're refusing to use the word gay.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But they just have a stand-in word for it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a substitution. It's a semantic issue.
It's just a bunch of letters. No one can get
It's
hurt
less scary.
by 3 little letters. SSA, same-sex attraction. So anyway, the reason we decided to have you two kids on to talk with us about it is that it occurred to me when this show came on, hey, I know somebody who was Mormon and married in a mixed orientation marriage.
It was.
Well, that's a curious way to put it.
Was it mixed orientation?
That sounds really adventurous.
I know, it sounds like something I'd want to do.
I know, right?
And
Sounds really risque.
I got news for you. You did it.
I know, right?
You
For
done
6
did it.
years.
Yeah. So we thought we'd have you guys on since you experienced this firsthand. And just have you chat a little bit about what that experience is and like what rang true and false for you about this show, and just really why the fuck would you marry each other when when one of you is gay? And to be clear, my wife is not the one who's gay.
No.
We probably should just.
No,
make
she's
sure
very much
that's
straight.
clear.
I can tell you that.
Shane is the gay one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Shane, just to be clear, do you want to sort of talk? Let's talk about like your journey. I think because really the key here is you, because
Right.
you were the gay one.
Yeah.
So you grew up LDS. When
Right.
did you know you were gay?
Oh gosh, I didn't even know what to call it. It was.
Right.
I mean, I was probably 7 or 8, and I just knew I liked looking at the boys, but hanging with the girls. Like
Okay.
I felt like I was friends with the girls, and the boys were just stuff we like looked at across the way. So I but I didn't know what to call it then. And as you get older, you're like, oh, I like that a lot more. And so, I mean, it was really early on. I knew I felt different,
Yeah.
but didn't know what to label it as, especially in the Mormon Church. Back then, I think the Mormon Church is trying to be a little more. I'm not going to say friendly, but more.
Well, I wouldn't say that there was any space back then.
No, not at all.
I mean, they've come up with this term SSA, and
Right.
it's not exclusive to the
Right.
Mormons, but like there was nothing.
No, and when, especially going through puberty, that's when I was going through puberty. When I hit 12 and started the young men's, that's when the youth pamphlets came out, and there was a big old paragraph in the youth pamphlet that talked about
The
how
strength of
For
youth.
the strength of
Yes,
youth.
for the strength of youth.
yeah,
Thank
that's
you,
what it was, yeah.
Frank.
I just remember the pamphlet and reading it and being like,
And
oh
it was
my
the
God,
worst
it's so
shade of
terrible.
mauve.
Yeah,
And
it really was.
Terrible.
I actually remember. It's funny that you say that because I hadn't thought about that thing for a long
Right.
time. But like, I remember looking through it, trying to like, does it say something about like me?
Oh no, absolutely. And then you read the thing on homosexuality, and the pamphlet was still running off of the whole Spencer W. Kimball Miracle of Forgiveness.
Former president of the LDS,
LDS Church, yes.
who
His
looked a
book
little bit
on-
like
on-
Yoda.
Really, he did. He really, really did.
But his special
But
powers
his
were
bigotry,
being an asshole.
right?
Denying gays and throat cancer. Those were his special powers.
Shit, Dan.
Sorry. Go on. I beg your pardon.
But they had it in there, and I don't remember. I mean, it's been so many years now, but I don't remember the exact wording. But in it was wrong, and you're going to go to hell if you're gay. I mean, that's essentially what they had it at. And anytime they talked about it, anytime you heard during the priesthood sessions that they would run with the young men, they'd have all the men do their thing on Saturday before conference. They would, anytime it was brought up, that's what it was you're going to go to hell, and
That's
it's
really
the
scary.
and the biggest thing was it's second only to murder. That was, I mean, they were still preaching this. That it was
That's
second only
true.
to murder.
That's true.
In terms
right?
of sinning.
Yeah, in terms of sinning. And so, I mean, that really does weigh heavily on, especially, a teenager trying to come into their own, just
Right.
in general. And so, I experimented like every teenager does. I had, for lack of a better word, a boyfriend in junior high that, we
Mhm.
experimented with, and had girlfriends, I guess you'd call it, like, if you can in junior high. And then serious relationship was Andrea in high school when I first met her. That was my
Mhm.
first serious relationship, but it took us a year to even get to that.
We met in drama class.
Hello.
Flashing lights, everybody.
Mormons are not trained to see the warning signs.
Oh, no. So, yeah, we met in drama class in 10th grade.
Yes.
We were sophomores in high school, and we became best friends
Yes.
immediately. I mean, in terms of our personality, and we just made each other laugh, and we had fun time, and we just had this group of friends around us that we had, it was fantastic. It was really fun.
I just realized I've never asked you guys this. Who kissed who first?
I believe if I'm not mistaken, the first kiss was on your porch.
Yes, it was. It was on my. I was racking my brain for a second to try to figure out when that was.
Yeah.
We were sitting on our front porch, on my front porch.
Yeah, and it was after we had exchanged notes. Notes, by the way, because we
Check
couldn't,
the
we
box.
couldn't
Do you like
honestly
me or
say
not?
we like you or I like you. It was notes and we told
It
each
was
other
the
how we
era
felt.
of
It
mixtapes
was.
and letters with
oh Lord, yes.
scrapbook letters.
Yes.
Well,
Aw.
scrapbooks. not a
And
good
so
word.
then it was after we'd read each other's notes that I came over to her house and we kissed on her front porch.
Do we remember who initiated the kiss?
It was probably Shane. I'm gonna
Probably,
say.
yeah.
You were
it
being
probably was
brave?
me. Yeah. I mean, it was. Again, it took me a year, and I felt comfortable with Andrea. That's
Sure.
what it came down to. It was, I mean, it wasn't so much, and I think that's what helped throughout our entire marriage was the fact that
We
I
were
was comfortable with
absolutely
each
friends.
other. I mean, we were friends before anything else.
Right.
Marriage was just sort of like, I guess we have to do this now.
Ugh.
So
This
let's
is what
do
we're
it.
expected. It's the
Right.
next evolution in our relationship.
Friendship is such a gateway drug.
It
It really is. And it makes something that wouldn't be a tenable situation otherwise
Right.
tenable for a long time. And, you know, I don't know if we want to leap. You know, I'm gonna reference the show when I say this, but love doesn't have anything to do with it because one of the women on the show just said, "Well, we loved each other. We love each other."
Mhm.
I still adore and love Shane with
Mhm.
all of my heart.
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean that we should be married.
No. I mean, there will always
Love
be
Tina
a
Turner
special
put
place.
it best.
Yeah, there's always a special place in my heart for Andrea. I will love her until the day I die. But
Love ain't got
yeah,
nothing to do with it.
No,
Yeah.
no. But yeah,
Well, her dick's too small.
it is. It really is. It just wasn't enough.
It's a poor excuse for a dick.
So you got okay. Now, Andrea, you've told me this before. How much did you know about where Shane was coming from going into your wedding day?
Well, Shane was the type of guy in high school. One of the things I actually liked about him was his rebellion. And it wasn't a healthy rebellion, clearly, you know, looking back, because, you know, he was just trying to deal with all of his fear and guilt and all of those things. But, you know, he did drugs in high school. He had messed around with boys and girls. And so my understanding was that he was bisexual.
So you knew this.
I knew.
Yes.
We had talked about it. We had
Yes.
very much.
You
it
had
was,
been very honest.
I
Yeah.
was honest. And see, that's where we get into the SSA thing that bugs the shit out of me is the fact that I had gone on my mission and had come home after 2 months being
Uh-huh.
out because I had admitted that I had a relationship in junior high with a guy. Now,
wow.
my mission president had said, "Oh, no big deal. We can deal with this here."
Well, and it had been so long
and
ago.
it had been
and
almost
he had
5
taken
years,
care of
and
it.
I'd taken care of it. I'd gone through the repentance process. You know, I jumped through the hoops like they asked me to.
Sorry, but the idea of taking care of it to
I
me
know.
sounded like I'd
You'd off
masturbated
somebody.
about it. It was
I mastered
done.
enough. I rubbed myself raw. We were good.
So when you say taking care of it, just to clarify for the
Went through-
non-Mormon
yes,
listeners,
went through the repentance process.
And there is like
You
a
confessed to
specific
your
process.
bishop.
Yes, yes. I had to. I luckily, and I think for me it was lucky. My dad was bishop at the time, so I didn't have to confess to him. They actually had me go confess to the stake president, who I think was nicer on me than a normal person would have been at that time. Because normally they would talk about disfellowship or
Yeah,
any of that, where I just
disciplinary action.
I just didn't take the sacrament for like a year.
Okay.
So I mean, it wasn't
Oh,
terrible.
boo-hoo.
I know, right? It was so sad. I didn't get the hors d'oeuvres.
you missed out on that delicious Wonder
I know,
Bread
right? It was
and
But,
water.
so anyway, so I confessed that, and they ended up sending me home. Or
They essentially freaked out.
They did. Well, the mission president said we'll deal with it here, but I have to call Salt Lake because it involves another man. And I'm like, oh, okay, weird. So he went into his office, and within 5 minutes, he's like, "This is your flight. This is your departure time. You're headed to the airport."
Holy shit.
He
Yeah,
ended
I
up
mean, it
getting
was-
an official apology from the first presidency later because they
Yes.
didn't handle it the way they
Yeah,
should have,
I-
even for
which
back
I
then.
kind of- yeah. So anyway, I get sent home, and off of the plane, my dad is there to meet me. We drive to the church house, and I have my bishop's court that night.
Oh
So I
my
mean, it's within that
God.
time. It was boom right then. Going to my bishop's court, which is the most bizarre thing
And
ever.
intimidating, I'm sure of
So
it.
intimidating.
Why did you say anything? Like I sat on all my stuff.
This is the
Like,
thing for me
you didn't
is
say a
Right?
word.
No, that's actually a really good question.
I will honestly say that one of the reasons I think our marriage lasted as long as it did was I did try. I mean, that's one thing I can honestly admit that I did not weasel my way out of it. I didn't try and justify it in my head. I really did try everything they told me to do.
Right.
And so I tried to be a good Mormon. I mean, I tried to live the standard that they gave me. I mean, I
And-
came home, and when I came home and saw Andrea for the first time, I honestly think I pulled her aside and said, I'm really worried about you because your lifestyle is a little bit wild.
Because I had been partying with my girlfriend.
No, for real.
No, he did. He was so
which is
just trying to play the
bizarre.
part.
And guilty, and I felt so guilty because I know that I started her on that path somewhat because she was a really good girl when I met her, and I mean, she.
Did you touch her in inappropriate ways before you were married?
Oh Lord, yes. No, we got caught.
Shocking.
We got caught in the car in my parents' driveway.
We did steamy
like
windows.
full on.
Isn't that hilarious?
Make out session.
No, wait. Was it your dad or your mom that caught you?
Both of them.
Okay. Did they know about your same-sex attraction?
They
at that?
did.
They
So
did know.
this
at
must
that
have been a
point.
relief. Like they must have been the most confused parents
His
on the
dad
planet.
with a wink and a nod knocked on the window
Yeah.
and said, "Hey kids,
Yeah,
you know.
hey kids, you probably should slow it down. No, my parents loved Andrea. I think they loved the fact that I was, dating a woman. I mean, it
Yeah.
was,
But then I truly became a member of
yeah,
their
and
family.
she really did.
So
I mean,
that
she was
helped a lot. But
yeah, she became just one of the family. I mean, it was. So anyway, I did the bishop's court, and that night they recommended disfellowship me. They weren't going to move on to excommunication, but they were going to send it to the stake president. Met with him. They decided they would go ahead with just the disfellowship and then send me to LDS Social Services to go through counseling.
So this is an organization that the LDS Church has set up
Yes.
that has a bunch of actual licensed counselors.
Yes.
But these are all Mormon therapists.
yeah,
Yes,
who
and not
toe
all,
that
and I will say
theology
that
line.
not all of them are therapists. They're licensed in the state to be counselors. I mean,
Right.
it's not full on.
They're not doctors
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah,
Right,
and
but we're talking licensed clinical social workers
some of
or
them. Some of them.
Okay.
I met with my person that, just FYI, this was just, I always found this amusing, is that 3 years after I went to see this counselor, he got
So yeah, I know what he's gonna say.
he got arrested for pedophilia with small
Jesus.
children. So it was
Oh,
one of those
God.
like, hi, this is the person that was treating me.
Right, yeah.
Yay. So, but it was through social services that it started getting pounded in me, the SSA, which was the same sex attraction, and that I was bisexual. That was their big thing, was that I was bisexual.
Okay.
Because I had a girlfriend before I left on my mission. So I had to be bisexual.
And you believed that probably.
I did. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I believed what they told me. I did their thing. The only thing that I stopped short of was I attended one meeting with Evergreen and had talked to somebody after. And Evergreen is it's a group therapy type place for same-sex it's people that deal with same-sex
They're basically
attraction.
trying to convert gay boys to not be gay. They're trying to change them.
It's a gay recovery program.
There
It's
we
a
go.
gay
Yes,
recovery.
yes, yeah.
Thank you, Frank. That
Right.
was
Yeah.
very well put.
It's now no longer known as Evergreen. Now it's what?
North Star, I
North
think
Star.
now, yeah.
Because Evergreen got a really bad reputation. So
It really did.
they actually
rebranded.
abused boys.
Well, somebody pulled me aside and said, if you're not looking to hook up, you probably shouldn't come to Evergreen, because that's a big portion of it, is that they would go on these adventures and hook up. And so this guy, and he was a really nice guy, and I can't remember his name, but he pulled me aside and he's like, just heads up, and so
Wow.
I told my parents what he said, and they're like, oh, well, let's not do that then.
Evergreen, just so our listeners know, Evergreen was also founded by some of the same people who were doing experiments at BYU
Yes.
about this, and like electroshock type
The
experiments.
aversion
Therapy.
therapy, they had and they also gave him the medication
Right.
intravenously that they would.
It
make
was
them
it
throw
was
up.
like it wasn't quite as bad as Clockwork Orange, but
Just
it was
about.
similar therapies
Yeah,
to
it
what you
was-
see in the
yeah.
movie
It's
Clockwork Orange.
it was quite horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that didn't happen to you.
No.
to be clear.
No. I just went through the therapy, that they would have me, and they wanted me to have. Oh, and 9 times out of 10, if you were gay and a male that went to social services, they would say that you had an overbearing mother and an absentee father. That right there is exactly the line. I mean, every single person that went in there
Right.
was an overbearing mother and an absentee father.
Just out of curiosity, did you have an overbearing mother and
Oh,
an
my
absentee
yes,
father?
yeah, I will say this. My mother
His
is
mother
very
is
overbearing.
overbearing.
The
but
absentee father, no. My
No,
dad
not
is
at all.
very much a part of. I mean, he was very there. I mean, he worked like any other.
I mean,
dad.
Shane, I don't want to call you out, but I know your dad travels a lot for work.
He does
but
now.
he
didn't
didn't.
then.
He
I will
didn't
say,
when Shane was growing
no,
up. That
and
was
if he was a
much
bishop,
later.
he wasn't around much.
No, when he was a bishop, he wasn't around, but that was later years, like in
Okay.
the during because they say the formative years. Like he
Oh,
started being a
right.
bishop when I was like 14, 15. So I mean, it was
So yeah, okay.
yeah. So I mean, he was
The die was cast.
like
at
yeah,
this
well,
point.
for real,
Right.
And the thing is he was there as much as any. I mean, because my mother didn't work, so I mean, it was one
Right.
breadwinner,
And obviously, it's a bunch of bullshit.
It
I
is,
mean,
yeah.
we know
but that was the biggest thing that they pushed. And the minute my mom heard that, because she was in.
So
This
the
tells you
minute
what-
the
no, no, no,
overbearing mother heard this,
This is what I should tell you. When we went there, I didn't go into the session by myself. My mother went in with me. So that should tell you right there if my mom's overbearing. So
and she heard this overbearing
she
thing.
did, and she was not pleased.
No, it puts a. I mean, like basically, you're saying your son is broken, and it's your fault.
Exactly.
That's nice.
Exactly.
But that was the message.
it was.
My grandmother told my mom that.
Oh, really?
Cut
Oh.
those apron strings, Carolyn. This was when
Oh,
I was
gosh.
like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Cut those.
5 or 6,
No, no,
you
well,
still need
everybody
a mother.
knew.
Yeah.
My dad knew.
They
My
knew.
grandmother
Yeah.
knew.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I will guarantee you, any gay person that honestly admits that they're gay is honest with themselves, and if people around them that love them are honest with them, they will say they knew. They knew the entire time. It was just trying to justify and try and make it work so that everybody could be comfortable.
Sure.
But so anyway, so I went through the process, and they had me try and be in more, I don't know what you'd call it, more, be around men more in a positive way, be
Really?
go to go to the priesthood meetings and go to these things so you can be an active, be part of, masculine bonding, because that's
This-
what I needed.
This fascinates me. Like the whole Mormon thing of like, oh, you suffer from being gay. Quick, go on a mission and hang out with only other boys your
Right.
age.
Right.
Quick, be with men. Like this seems like
It's so
it
silly.
seems like bad advice.
It didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, to me, because I really didn't have a lot of problems with being around guys. I mean, there were some issues of. I think any gay guy, when they're going through those years, throughout your teenage years into your early to late teens, once you 19 years old, you do kind of always feel inadequate around. I mean, you're always trying to test yourself and see, around a group of
that's
men.
just
But
being a
life.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just being a guy. And
Yeah.
so, but they twist it into being sort of this, you got to go in and you got to get in there and, be a man and,
Join the
so-
wrestling team.
right? Go play something.
Be
Go
all-American.
Play a sport.
Yeah.
So
How about water polo? You really enjoy that. So manly.
you get so cut. It's so good. So I went through their program, and as soon as I'd finished all of the recommended number of sessions that I needed, my therapist said, after going through everything, said, it's kind of odd that they sent you home. He said, especially with it being so long. So he wrote a letter to the stake president. Stake president wrote a letter to the mission president, and I ended up getting an official apology later on, and was invited to go back on my mission if I wanted to.
Oh.
And I said no.
Hmm.
I didn't. I kind of had my fill. I think that was the beginnings of being, I don't want to say jaded, but there was the seeds of sort of, I don't think they really know what they're doing really. And so,
That's shocking.
I know, right?
That's shocking to hear.
So
So, but you weren't too jaded because you ended up getting married
I did. Yes.
in the Mormon temple.
Yes.
Well, I think to be clear and to be fair, to go on a mission or to go back onto the mission is to jar yourself out of your life. You can, to that extent, you weren't ready to go there. But
No.
to get married was, again, just that evolution of our relationship and kind of, what the natural next step was.
Well, at this point, we'd been together for, how many years was it?
Well, we had been friends since 15 and had been dating since like 17 at this point.
Well, 16 was when I got to go on my first date with you. Like it was.
So yeah, I know. Is that
I had to
lucky
wait. I had to
boy.
wait. I know, right? I had to wait.
So
16 to 21. 'cause
Yeah.
I got married we got married shortly
I was
before.
22 when we
Yeah.
got married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that many years we were together dating. and I think it just was the evolution of this.
Yeah,
is
it's
everybody
what
expected.
what was expected.
And Andrea, what was your understanding of your soon-to-be husband's sexuality when you were getting married?
Well, like I said, I knew that he had kind of dabbled in all the things, and
Oh, he dabbled.
he dabbled. So again, my knowledge of who he was bisexual.
Okay.
And like I said, for me, I guess, I don't think I was being naive. For me, it was, like I said, it was kind of attractive that he was a guy that had kind of, he'd done a lot of things. And I feel like even at that point, I had started becoming more open-minded about things. And so it just didn't bother me that much.
Yeah. I think so the messaging that you guys got from your church was what? This was going to be okay?
Well, we were encouraged. After my
Yes.
counseling, we were encouraged to get married. I mean, that's my counselor when I was done said, you've got a girlfriend.
This
you
is
should, you should
what
propose.
you should do.
Like, you should get
And
married.
the church is very clear about the fact that if you pray and you read the scriptures and you do all the things that you're supposed to be a good Mormon, a member of the Mormon church, you will be blessed and it will just work for you. We were told that. And so we were both doing what was essentially commanded of us, and we were doing what we thought was the right thing and it would be fine. And again, through all of this, the thread was we loved each other. So it's just, of course this is going to work.
Right.
We had such a great time together.
Yeah. It really was. I mean, we enjoyed each other's company, and I think it made it a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
When was the first moment when you were worried it wouldn't work?
Gosh.
Pregnant pause.
Well,
I
I'm trying to
feel
think,
like was probably the first. Well, remember within the first year of our marriage.
it was, the first year
There-
was a rocky year because it was, we got on with each other, I think, just as normal as friends, but when you added in all of the intimacies that, belonged in a marriage, that's when things got
expectation.
shaky. Because, there was there was the expectations of sex, there was expectations of cuddling, and I was not by any stretch
Cuddling
a
was unsafe.
cuddler. No, it was
It was on the danger scale.
it was on the danger scale.
That
Shane and I would hold hands.
Yes.
And we would cuddle when Shane could gear himself up and be ready
Yes.
for it. But if he
Yes.
couldn't, it was just scary. It
Yes.
was almost as if, even though I never thought this, because for me, just cuddling didn't have to mean sex. But for
Right.
Shane, it was like, oh crap, this is going to
sex.
mean sex
She wants
later.
sex. Like, she
And
put her hand
really-
on my thigh. She wants sex.
right.
And that wasn't always the case,
No.
but I could not differentiate between the two.
Well,
So
and
and we're still both young, and so trying to figure that shit out.
Right.
So
Well, and on top of that, we both had done our playing around as
escapading.
yes, when we were younger.
You'd sown
But
some
we had
oats.
we had done everything. We'd done everything but full on sex. With each other.
Right. Exactly.
And so it was.
So yeah,
It
we
was very
literally
awkward,
did everything
surprisingly.
except for you sticking your penis in my vagina.
There we go. Yes, it was.
Yeah,
it was up to that point.
It was clear that Shane was battling something, that he was really trying to process something. And in fact, a guy that I had dated actually a little bit, and I want to say dated in the sense that I was always really with Shane, but we just kind of cheated on each other.
That is true.
So this guy I fooled around with, I didn't date him, I fooled around with him, happened to go into one of the stores that I was managing at the time, and stupidly my staff, he asked if I was there, and stupidly my staff gave him my phone number.
Whoa.
Which is really scary. If it had been a scary person.
Right.
I was
Right.
lucky it wasn't a scary person. But he ended up calling my home, not knowing I was married. And Shane got the call, and it freaked him out.
Who is this? I don't even remember.
I don't even remember his name, but I remember this happening, and he just clearly that was also disrupting this whole thing that
yeah.
he was dealing with, and got mad at me. And finally, after it all, after he was finally ready to talk, we sat down and talked, and Shane, told me that he'd been really struggling and trying to process things, and that he wanted to tell me that he knew at this point that he wasn't bisexual, that he was gay.
Right. Right.
And that was
And at that point, you both got divorced, right?
no, I was just about to say that was our out. That was both of our outs.
No, for reals.
And I don't remember the conversation specific enough to understand like why that wasn't the conclusion that we came to, but he told me and I was completely fine and open about it, and you know, and we just kept going. We did. And
I can honestly say that I think there was the comfort of it.
I was just about to say that.
Far more enticing to us than
the fear of the next
having
step.
to go out and part ways. I think that.
Well, I'm curious about the terminology that you used. Like, did you say?
He said
I
gay.
flat out said gay. Like
Okay.
He said gay.
I said
like the show we just watched. You weren't using SSA.
no.
You weren't,
I
okay.
Shane never did.
I never used SSA.
So okay.
My parents tried to use it once in a while in dealing with the whole counseling thing, but even then I'd be like, no, it's gay. Like I can't stand the term SSA. To me, it's ridiculous.
Huh. That's an awful term.
It's just weird.
Yeah. So that was our out. And I agree with Shane. I think both of us, I mean, there would have been a lot of ramifications. Shane might have had to come out at that point.
Right.
I might have, my family and his family would have known. We would have had to find other people to be with. And that was scary.
Right.
Because we, like Shane said, we were comfortable and we loved each other. And I'll be honest, at this point, looking back, I don't regret a single thing. And I'm really glad that we didn't divorce at that time, because for me, I wouldn't have been a whole enough person. I mean, I was 23 at the time.
Right.
I wouldn't have been a whole enough person or known who I was well enough to know how to take the next step properly.
Right.
And I probably would have jumped right back into another Mormon marriage. Probably not a gay man, but most likely not a gay man. But I would have married I would have gone on to marry another member of the church, and I would probably have kids at this point. And that was never, by that point, Shane and I were not committed to the church. We played the part for our families,
Right.
but we did not go to church regularly, or we would go through bouts of it. And I also will say, too, that after we had that conversation, our sex life became a lot more normal or regular.
It was. I think because
I guess normal might not be the right word, but
figured
normal.
the way
we figured it out.
Yeah, I think we were able to find that mutual ground that we could
Navigate things.
navigate and work with each other on it, because that's what we had to do. It was just part of it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I think fear kept us together and comfort, fear of what would have been next. And we'd
Such
always
a
just done
wonderful foundation.
I know, isn't it beautiful?
And you know what? I mean, looking back though, I think that was the underlying thing. But just like Andrea said, I would never ever give up the years that we had, because I mean
it made us
they
who
were
we
still
are
good. I
today.
mean,
and
we
they
still
were
had good
wonderful.
years,
In
yeah.
fact, honestly, like, we were the most healthy relationship
surprisingly.
in Shane's family, to be honest. And compared to my parents, we had a wonderful relationship. And
Right.
so it was working to an extent. And we had a wonderful time, and we traveled all over the place, and we redecorated our house together a cajillion times.
Yeah, I
and,
bet you did.
And and
Oh,
we
yeah.
just,
Particular, you have to understand, everybody, that Andrea's an interior designer,
Yes.
and Shane's a visual artist and gay.
and
So-
I would get really
Gay.
pissed because he would assert his opinion more than I could
Oh.
assert my opinion. It was this constant fight about whose aesthetic was the right answer. It was hilarious.
Well, I think I
Yeah.
inherited a couch that was part of.
Oh yes, the brown couch.
That's right. That's right. Frank got the.
Which I actually really
Shane and
liked. But
Andrew.
it
I honestly I did too. Like it was,
was a good couch.
It was great.
Yeah. It was.
Well, and so anyway, I digress. What's new?
So
But-
so let me just get you to let's push forward till when we actually did, when
Well,
the walls came tumbling down.
Well, this is the thing. This is the weird thing. Is a year before I came out, we started trying to have a child.
yes.
Wow.
So we were
And
timing
I will say,
everything.
knock on wood, knock on anything, it did not happen.
I
It
am
did not take.
so happy. I am so happy. I mean, especially because I don't even think at this point I want children, let alone
Right.
with
well, but
somebody.
that was the next step. I
Right.
mean, that's what
It was the
everybody
next
expected.
progression.
Plus, for Shane, I mean, I imagine that to some extent it would take the pressure off of like having to be her partner, because then you could be somebody's dad, and you could. Did that play into it at all?
Not really.
Oh,
It was
okay.
for me. It was what was expected. And I, for too much of my life, did what everybody expected. Like
Right.
it was expected you do this. It was
Yep,
expected
me
you do this.
too.
It was expected you do this. And I
And
was
we were
just,
told that's what we wanted.
Right.
So we thought that's what we wanted.
We had a house, and we were.
Yeah.
That was the next step.
Oh my
Sure.
God, we bought a house in the fucking suburbs.
I know, right?
That is so not us.
I know.
It was terrible. We really did. We even did what was against, regardless of whether we were married or not, and he was gay and I was straight. We were just going against our own nature in
Right.
a lot of things.
And yeah.
we were city people, and we I mean, we
Yeah.
had lived in a loft downtown Salt Lake, and then bought a house in Spanish Fork,
Spanish Fork,
Utah.
yeah.
I hated my life there.
Yeah.
I did.
No,
I hated
it was terrible.
That's for our listeners who are used to hearing Frank and me talk about Utah topography or Utah geography. Spanish Fork is south of Provo, which makes it even more Mormonier.
And far flung. Like
Really
you're out in
far
the middle
flung.
of
Well,
almost
and-
nowhere.
No, it's
Remote.
the end. It's the last city before you head to St. George. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
The last of the
the last
civilizations.
of, yeah.
And honestly, I was driving into Salt Lake for work. That's where all my friends
worked in
were.
Salt Lake,
That's
too.
where
Yep.
Shane had friends. None of us, like, it wasn't what we wanted. So we just, the rabbit hole kept getting narrower and narrower.
It really did.
And yeah, so by,
So what happened?
But it was during the. So what happened was it was about, I'd say, 6 months before I actually told you I was gay, like that I couldn't do this anymore.
yeah, because I knew you were gay.
I started having I started getting into these funks, and I was just really depressed, and I honestly was getting to a point where I hated looking at myself in the mirror, which is, it's bizarre, but I just
I
I couldn't
that's-
stand it.
Mm.
I just wasn't happy, and the more I would try to to go through that
and
cycle
do
that
what
I'd
they
always
told
doing,
would
yeah,
make you happy.
it just
No.
wasn't working this time. The I couldn't get back into the.
How did you
The
approach
Go
Andrea?
get him cycle.
I called her at work and said, I need you to come home and we need to talk. So she came home and we went for a walk. And we kind of were walking around the neighborhood. And that's when I said that I can't do it anymore. I couldn't be married anymore. I just.
And remarkably, and I want to be clear that at the beginning of our conversation, it wasn't about the gay thing.
No.
It actually wasn't. It wasn't about that. And we talked a little bit about the having kids thing. And he told me that he really just didn't think we should have kids. He'd been thinking a lot about it, and he really didn't think we should have kids within our situation. But it wasn't about our situation not necessarily being tenable.
Right,
it was
right.
just that it just
Because I don't think I said during that conversation.
no, ever.
I'm gay. That's it.
and
just
and
said,
I need
can't
to
do
be,
this
I need to
anymore. I just
go
can't do
and
this
be with
anymore.
men, so we need to divorce. That
Yeah.
wasn't it. And
But
go ahead,
but
Frank.
you must have understood what it was. I
Well,
mean,
yes, and so the progression
I
of the conversation was it actually came full circle, and I was the one who told him. I said, okay. I mean, we actually within an hour we were like, okay, we're getting divorced.
No, for real.
It was actually quite easy, and I was the one who said, okay, this is our chance. And I said ours because it was
Yes.
clear at this point I wasn't living the life I knew I wanted either. And so I said, this is our chance to be who we are
Mhm.
and do what we should have been doing all along.
Right.
And so you're going to come out as gay and no, to your family, and just make it official.
Right.
And you're going to move on with your life in that way.
Yep.
And I'm going to do the same. I really didn't think I believed the church anymore, and I had to figure that out still a little
Right.
bit. But it was about shutting everything down at that point that was what we didn't want, that had been just expected of us up
Right.
to that point.
And I can honestly say that it was that night we decided, like, to move forward. We were going to do it together. Like, this wasn't going to be. We weren't going to live separately when we divorced. We wanted to be there for each other.
That's right.
and-
You were living together when I came into the
Yeah,
picture.
we were
right.
roommates, and,
And so-
I had a bedroom on the second level, and he had a bedroom on the first
Right.
level, and we put our house on the market literally within a week of deciding
Right.
this, we sold the house the next day. Luckily, it was right before the market crashed. It
Right.
was like the boom. We made a lot of money. We moved without our families really even knowing. We
No,
found an
no.
apartment.
We told my parents
We told his
the
parents.
next day, and it was
We weren't supposed to.
no.
The plan was that we would wait till we moved
Right.
and then tell everybody.
Yes.
And at that point, nobody could say anything about it. But Shane
Right.
can't keep anything from his family. And
I
so-
can't keep anything. Period. Like
He
I'm
can't.
not a
He's
good.
not
I'm
a
not
good-
good at like surprises.
No, he's just
I'm
gets
not,
so excited to
yeah,
tell.
I do. I'm like, so, but
So I came home one day after we had this
it was the
whole
next day. 'Cause-
plotted down.
and I will say,
you know.
Andrea didn't cry.
No,
and
I
she's
was
a
very
crier.
stoic, and I'm
She's
a crier.
She didn't cry when I told her. She cried the next day with Brian. Because I remember you called me. You're like, I cried all morning.
Brian,
Brian-
Brian's
is her
Andrea's gay coworker.
Yeah,
And my best friend,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
other than Shane at that point, he
Right.
was my other best friend. And yeah, during our conversation, I just knew it was what we should
Right.
be doing.
and it did. It was.
It felt totally right. And I felt empowered. I
Mhm.
actually felt, and this is why I'm glad we stayed married for all that time, because that would not have been us in our first year of marriage.
Right.
Neither of us would have been empowered. We
Right.
would have spiraled down the hole even quicker, and to a point that I don't think we would have ever gotten out
No.
in a safe way.
No.
And so we stayed together and helped each other grow up and figure out who each other was until it was that we were at a point where we could help each other fly the coop and we could do that together and help
Right.
support each other. And unfortunately, when he told his mom, she was actually okay with it at the
Right.
moment he came out, and she was really excited that, you know, because Shane was like, well, Andrea's probably going to go on and have a family, you know, because at that point, that's what I thought I still wanted.
So wait,
and
this was the day
This
after?
was the day after
After.
that night. I
And
went and
his-
talked to my mom.
yeah, and his mom was like, great, Andrea can, you know, they call me Annie. You know, Annie, you know, Shane was like, you know, she's still part of the family. And his mom was like, yes, you know, her kids will be my grandkids. And it was just going to be this beautiful thing. And we were all just going to progress in a beautiful direction and finally get what we needed and wanted.
Oh,
And
everybody was going to live happily ever
we
after.
were.
So we thought.
So we thought, and then the tides quickly
And then
turned.
yes,
They-
it was the next day. My dad got home, and my dad's not a mean person by any stretch. He's a very soft-spoken person. He's
Very
not,
gentle.
Yeah, and he wasn't mean about this, but I know that there was some of him sort of pushing the religion side
It was his
for
last
my
ditch
mom
effort.
to,
Mhm.
I think to turn her a little bit to say, this isn't right. We can't support this, and that's kind of what it came to. And there was a screaming
And-
match, and
And Shane had to jump in front of his mom because she lunged at me.
she lunged at Andrea, and I said, "We're done." And I grabbed Andrea, and we walked out of the house.
And he yelled at his mom, "You will never lay a hand on her." And
Yeah.
his family, unfortunately, I know now that it was a defense mechanism and it was fear and all of this, but they were yelling at me that I wasn't woman enough
Right.
and that it was my fault and
Right.
that why didn't we go to the bishop together and that I was a bad wife for letting us divorce instead
Right.
of taking him to the bishop
put
where
the
I
blame,
should.
and that's the thing that always
And that hurt me a lot. 'cause I
startled
was
me
so
was
close with
because
them.
I was the gay one, but yet I think that's where it came from. Is they couldn't blame me. They knew. They'd known.
They had
for
already
years
known for
Right.
years.
that this was the case, and so.
Also, you're theirs.
But Andrea, and this is the thing, because I had a conversation with my mom. Andrea was there. It's like she'd been there for so many years that
I was closer to Shane's mom than any of the other sister-in-laws, and actually even closer than some of her other kids.
right. My mom
I was one of
honestly
her best
was like
friends.
her. I mean, she treated her like a daughter. This was it was. I think
It was a betrayal. I felt very betrayed.
Yeah, and
I-
I
it
think,
was
and
very
surprisingly,
hurtful.
that's the term my mom used as well. Is that she felt betrayed? I'm like, you guys stop. So I'm just like enough. But yeah, it was, but I didn't talk to my parents for a year.
Yeah, they disowned him
disowned me
essentially,
for
and
about a year.
not to throw the hero card, but I was the only one in your life that
Nope,
stuck by you.
stuck.
You're
And-
kind of throwing the hero card.
Well,
She deserves the hero card. I will say
I'm
this:
just-
she was the one that stood by, and honestly, was one of the few people that said, "You know what? I love you no matter what." I'm here."
unconditionally.
Yeah, and there
Oh.
was unconditional love.
So I'm curious about this thing. After you got divorced, how long did it take you guys to say, I'm not Mormon anymore?
I did it the night that I came out. I took my garments off and I was done. I actually went through and cut all my symbols out of the garments, and
Which is
burned them in the
interesting that you would
ashtray.
actually go through the efforts of doing
Surprisingly,
because that's
yes. It was-
It's like it still has power. Like
Yeah.
I like set mine aside for a while because
Right.
I couldn't face them.
right.
I did the
And
same.
then I one day was like, okay, these are going into a grocery store bag.
Frank,
And I
our
am
garments
throwing them
went down the same path.
and I am throwing them in that dumpster over there.
That's what I did. I put them in a Smith's plastic grocery bag, tied a knot, threw them into a
exactly what I
dumpster.
did. That's exactly what I did. Because I was like, this cannot have power over me.
Anymore.
But in the moment, I couldn't deal with it, and so I just set it aside. And
it
then
was
when
one of
I
those
could,
things I did it that night, and I never wore garments again after that point. And
For me,
but I remember, Shane, I remember you going to Affirmation.
oh yeah, no, I
which
tried
is
to,
an organization that
I
for
tried to find
Mormons
that-
who are trying to find sort of a
right.
common ground.
I tried to
or-
find that bridge to and looking at it now, there was that it was so ingrained to have you have to have a spiritual outlet somewhere, that and if the Mormons weren't going to accept me, then I'll find somewhere that does, not realizing that I just need to accept me and I'm good enough, but so I tried to find I went to Affirmations and tried to find some outlet there, but
I think that Dan and Frank have done a really good job of illustrating to the non-Mormon listeners that Mormonism is this hardwired thing that you don't just turn off like a switch. And as much as you can try, there are just going to be these little things that just creep in, and you have to let each one come up, process it, and eventually there won't be any more of the little devils that pop up anymore. So it's a process. You cannot just leave. Even if at the core you don't believe it, you have to go through that
when
process.
I first met Dan was at the house party at your house, and to this day I will remember, because I pulled Andrea aside when we got home and I'm like, I just was really uncomfortable. Dave,
my friend
made
Dave,
some joke about Joseph Smith or something.
he was my roommate. Yeah.
Made some joke, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Which is so funny
offended.
because
I was like,
which is so funny because Shane was he has offensive humor.
I do. I have very offensive humor.
And so
but
even when we were married and when he was Mormon, that would have been a funny joke.
Yeah,
but he
but
was
you
so
guys-
overly sensitive at the time.
Yes.
I don't think either of you were prepared for my group of friends because
No.
because you
No.
were pretty fresh out off the boat.
It
and,
was-
and my
There was
group
a lot
of
of gay
friends.
people there, and everybody's really like loud and offensive and funny, and we fit right in now.
Right.
I mean, that's who we
yeah.
really
Right,
are.
right, but
and we were.
at the point it was like, oh my
But
gosh.
it's shocking to
this
hear
is
it the
so-
first few
yes.
times. I remember, Andrea, you were at a party and someone asked you what your temple name was, and you couldn't handle it.
I pretended that I could, and I wanted to roll with it, so I just made up a name.
Did you really?
I just
What did you
made up
make
a
up?
name.
Do you remember what fake one you had?
Yeah.
I remember your name. I still to this day remember your name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he can call me forth.
Call her forth.
Ruth.
I'm coming, Shane.
It's Ruth. I still to this day remember.
Oh shit, that sounded. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we don't need to go back there.
Oh gosh, yeah, I made up the name Mary.
Did you really?
I just threw that out there. I was like, that's what it was. Like it again. I had taken my garments off at this point. I did not believe it, but
No,
that
it's a
was
great
one of those
example
little.
of one of those things that just
Great
they just
example.
haunt
Yeah.
you. And
They
haunt
do.
you
They
and
it haunts you, and now I could care less.
Well, and
I couldn't care less.
Although I will say that we weren't divorced yet. It took us 8 months?
for the papers to process and
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
it took us about
So,
6 months.
But she took me out to my first gay bar,
Oh,
and
Yeah.
she got me laid that night.
that's a special time in a marriage.
It really
I know,
is.
it is.
It's
really
a
is.
special time in a marriage when
Shane
the wife
had a harder time
gets
letting
her husband
me,
to-
letting
I
me
will
go.
say it was a difficult process because, and this is the oddest thing, is when Dan started dating Andrea, I felt I didn't want to be married to her, but there was still that sense of mine.
That's
Like, this
my
is
friend.
mine.
That's my girl.
Like, this is mine.
Mhm.
And there was
and he had to
honestly
start sharing
some
me.
jealousy there that shocked me, and I didn't know how I couldn't even call it jealousy back then. I didn't know what I was feeling. I just was like,
we knew
And
it was
so
jealousy.
And so nobody,
right?
so of course he had to henpeck Dan about things.
everything. And now I feel so bad because Dan's an awesome person, but at the time it was
Well, you were just trying to figure out who you were and trying to navigate. And for
Right.
me, it wasn't another girl. I
No.
think if it was another girl, it would have been hard for me.
Right.
For me, it was boys, and I
Right.
was like, oh, that's so cute. That boy's cute, and just it was totally different.
Yeah.
Okay, but before we end this, I do have I do want to hear a response to the show. Like I like there. It wasn't a well done show.
No.
We can just get that out of the way.
Yeah, the
And there was
production value was quite terrible.
There are a lot of little like I don't want to hear nitty gritties. But did you what did you see in there that maybe was there anything relatable in it? Was there anything that
That's hard.
It felt forced to me. Like, I mean, it was sort of like bludgeoning you over the head about the whole thing.
Sure.
And
yeah,
it didn't seem genuine in the sense. I mean,
and beyond even the, how hard it is to be on camera and to have these situations kind of, mapped out for you. That's awkward in itself. So beyond that, even the couples themselves, there was just an awkwardness. In fact, we even commented, the all of us that are here that watched it together, was that the moment that they talked about losing their child, one of the couples, that was the most genuine moment in the show. Otherwise, it felt very, the language was very regurgitated. It's the language that the church gives you. Everything felt very formulaic. Nothing felt new or genuine or different than what I've heard towed the line for all these years. And for me, I sat with literally a knot in the pit of my stomach the entire time.
Yeah.
I
think each of the couples, it seemed, I mean, the best, like I said, it seemed very forced in trying to push the idea that, that they're gay and that we're okay with this. And it didn't seem genuine. It didn't seem like a real couple that has worked to sort of find that middle ground. I mean, for us, it wasn't so, I mean, I didn't walk around and say SSA or he didn't walk around and be like, I'm offended that somebody would think he was gay. Cause I mean, we really talked about things and understood what that meant to each other and understood, that we were committed to each other while we were married, but we didn't have to go around and be like,
we didn't have to make excuses or justifications for it. Like
and
we were in it when we were in it because that's what we wanted, but not because I just I felt like with the couples, the women, and this is a leap and a judgment, but what it really appeared to be, with the words that they were saying, was that they just didn't feel like they could find anybody else. And they hadn't been dating for years and years. It seemed like relatively new relationships. And then other than the one couple who'd been married for 16 years before he told her, but it just, we were in it the entire time because that's genuinely, I just really don't know how to say it, but it just didn't, it felt like they were just trying to cram themselves into a mold. We were never trying to do that.
It looked right, but it didn't ring true, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked the part, but it didn't.
Well, and what I've heard from you guys is that, like, you had a loose association with the church through a lot of this. Like,
yes, and that I think is...
And these people were definitely trying something very different. Trying to...
That actually makes me really sad. For me, I felt watching them, and I hated when Mormons, after I left the church, pitied me. I hated that pity. That actually angered me quite a bit for the longest time. It was nothing else but the pity. So I don't want to do the same thing that I hated people doing to me, but I just felt really bad for them. I felt that they haven't been able to get past a religion that essentially doesn't accept them and hates them, and they're just trying to desperately make it work. And for me, that just seems really sad.
And I think that's probably the only part that rang the truest to me, was that it was a futile attempt at trying to fit in and trying to be something that to the very core of who you are, you're not, but so badly you want to.
Yeah,
so
and they're not going to have true companionship. I mean, Shane is now married to Todd, a wonderful person, and I'm now married to Dan. And even though Shane and I had a wonderful relationship and we still love each other, to have the intimacy with the partners that we do now, these couples will never have. Right. And they'll never have that happiness, and they'll never know that. And it makes me sad. Yeah. And it's the religion that's getting in the way of that. And they're just trying to, I guess what I saw the whole time was them just trying to tell themselves a story and do desperately whatever they had to do to keep reinforcing that story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I know that clearly this is a culture that's created by a religion, but I didn't hear a lot of religion in this. to be
No.
honest. Like, in fact, like I can be moved by expressions of faith, right?
Totally.
Like when somebody's saying something that's genuine and from the heart about their conception of just the universe and their life and
Right.
where they think their meaning comes from, I can feel that. And I guess
And-
my problem was what I saw was these guys who were just desperately sad about what they thought masculinity was and what they thought
Right.
being a man was.
And they were
Right.
stereotyping themselves, and
was
then it was
horrid.
weird.
Yeah.
It was horrid, and I could tell. I feel like, you know, again, the screen is a barrier, but nothing. I just felt a sadness and reactions from the wives, like confusion or frustration. It felt there was angst there,
Right.
and there was sadness.
A lot of awkward moments. And
Yeah.
like, oh.
Well,
Ooh.
you know, that's it. A lot of that comes from like you could really smell the producers on
Right,
everything,
absolutely.
pushing them
However-
to say something. Have this.
Absolutely.
Now you guys have to have this conversation.
But even
you
the-
pretend like you're going to go on a
Yeah.
camping trip with some guys and see how you respond.
Well, and just like Frank was saying, I think the genuine moment of that show when they talked about the death of their child touched because there was something true. They weren't parroting something. It
Yeah.
wasn't,
They weren't just repeating
Right.
what they'd been told their whole
Right.
lives. They weren't just regurgitating something.
but the
Right.
minute that they got to what the meat of the show was supposed to be about, it just was droning. It was just the same thing over and
Yeah.
over again. And
A very uninteresting show.
it really
actually.
was. I mean,
And I don't
yeah.
want to spend too much time even talking about
Right,
it. I
but-
feel like the conversation that we've had about you guys and your relationship that's what we need to be talking about. But one more
Yes.
response question.
okay.
I don't know if anybody like how much you guys were up on sort of Glad's denouncement of this show and what a travesty and the harm that a show like this could do. I wonder just sort of I mean, I want Dan to even chime in on this. Like do you think this is a damaging show? Do you think this is like a harmful thing that needs to be denounced?
I think it's harmful.
I think it's somebody, myself, when we were married, I would have watched this and it would have been sort of, I think could have pushed me in a direction to be more involved in the religion, trying to
Make it work.
make
they're
it
making
work,
it work.
yeah, and again feeling small that I'm not able to accomplish what they're
Right.
able to accomplish.
I just wonder. To me, my question is: can anybody look at what we just watched and think, "Oh, that feels genuine. Oh, that feels like those are good choices. Oh, that actually feels like I want to participate in those marriages"?
I would hope
No.
not, because they look
Because to
really
me, it
bad.
doesn't seem dangerous at all. Because all I can look at every time when
Well,
I look at that, I'm just like,
I
nobody could see that.
And you know
be
what?
like,
I will
"That's
say,
a great thing."
I will say, their marriages is something that I don't think could be. But it's the message. It's that.
That's
that
what I
message
was
that
going
they
to
were
say.
Pounding.
It's pounding the SSA thing, and it's reinforcing what I think is a damaging dialogue.
I mean, because they had what was it? 10 minutes of other gay people
Right.
that, or I guess what the producers thought were gay people.
A confrontation.
Right, the confrontation moment. There was, it was so small compared to the whole show. And I know that the show was about their gay husbands and
Right.
trying to make them, work in the Mormonism and all that. But I would hope that there are more people that would watch the show and come away with it being that this is it's a joke. I mean, this can't, they can't be serious as opposed to people. But like I said, I think people that are struggling, trying to fit
Could
into the,
see it
could see it
and-
as a message that they, I've got to try and, and that's where I think it could hurt. I mean, my position now, I look at it and to me, it's a joke. I mean, but
Yeah, and I would agree, and yeah, it just there seems to be a bitterness almost, like there just was so many emotions that were underlying that anybody they come in contact with, and clearly this is still the message of the church, or these people wouldn't be living this, and so for me it just reiterates that the church has a long way to come before it's a place I think that is accepting. And I don't know, it's just that's why I think it's dangerous, because I think their message is dangerous and they're towing that church line.
right.
Well,
So-
I'm just really glad that Andrea, that you're no longer married That your husband's not gay. That your husband's actually not gay now.
Although you have been called into question.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's true. We'll do a show about us called My Husband is Frequently Mistaken for Gay.
He's an actor, y'all.
No, see, that would be funny. That would be
That would actually be a good
Right?
show.
Yeah.
And Frank is a documentary filmmaker and a good one, and so he could produce a good
There you
show.
go.
And
Anyway.
we should just do that.
Thank you guys so much for being willing to do this and
Thanks.
Thank
and
you.
for sitting through that god awful nonsense that we had to watch.
It was so
And,
much fun.
Yeah, my apologies.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
okay. We were here together.
It was a good time.
We were here together. We had some gin and tonics. We're gonna be okay.
Yeah, I think we'll be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Well, see, isn't that way more interesting than what TLC had?
Dear God, hopefully some of you actually did watch the show. I'm sorry that you did,
Yeah, it's Frank's fault.
but
He told you to.
But if you did see it, hopefully that salvaged that experience for you just
Right.
a little bit.
Right.
But a very nice conversation.
There's
And
hope out there.
Thanks again to Shane and Andrea for
That's great.
for joining us.
I have to point out, never mind. I was going to say something about how my wife doesn't happen to be one of those women that chose a gay man because she's too homely to find. She doesn't have the confidence to find us. Yeah, that's not.
And while not saying it, you found a way to say it. How wonderful.
Yeah, I'm just saying my wife's hot. That's all I'm saying. I got a hot wife. I'm just bragging. That was all I was getting to.
All right. Well, let's see. We have a couple things that we need to still. We need to do our normal thanks.
Yeah. First of all, if you guys need to get a hold of us, if you want to,
I'm all disoriented because that wonderful interview it just got me all.
now we're shook up. We're all shook up. If you guys want to write into us and let us know anything, your reaction to Andrea and Shane's
We'd love to hear from
alternative lifestyle.
Maybe somebody out there had a similar experience.
Yes,
We'd
indeed.
love to
Let
hear
us
from you.
let us know what's going on with you. Podcast at thankgodimatheist.com.
Or you can leave us a voicemail at 424-666-8442.
Indeed, go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist.
Or look for that TGIA Members Only Lounge,
Yeah.
also on Facebook.
Fun
Just,
place to be.
Search for it.
Yeah. Thanks so much to Mackenzie for all the work she does.
As always, thank you, Mackenzie. And of course, thanks to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their music.
Yeah. Don't forget to go to our webpage, thankgodimatheist.com. There you can find the support tab as well as a link to Joyride
Absolutely.
to participate in our funding campaign.
Yes. We've been doing the show now for just over 3 years, and we've been able to do quite a bit with the support that we've received so far from our wonderful people who've been donating. But we're really trying to take the show to the next level.
Right. And you can be an integral part of that.
Yeah, we have some rewards up on the page. There's the Immortality, which is available for $5 a month.
And we just point out that $5 a month, if you give up one of your Starbucks lattes every month and just give that to us, for just 30 cents a day.
Oh, those
you can
poor
help
children.
a starving podcaster.
But there are other rewards as well. There's for $3. You can pick up a ringtone.
Yeah.
Of us yelling at you.
Yeah.
And for $15 a month, you can join in our monthly Google Hangout.
Yeah.
So check those things out.
Yep. Get on it.
All right.
So thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Bye bye.